Australians have read it. What is the scariest encounter you've had with one of the native animals? I was driving on a straight unsealed road through barren land and had not seen anything on the road or to either side for about half an hour when I had to decelerate heavily to avoid driving into a group of half a dozen emus who were startled and who scattered in all directions. Came home after 2 weeks away. My parents picked me up, unloaded my suitcase, loaded it up themselves, then left on holidays. That night, I was sleeping on my stomach, and a possum came in through the window and landed on the soles of my feet. I'm guessing he had pushed through the flat screen while I was away and had been sleeping in my room. All I knew is something big and hairy landed on me. I lashed out, and he went flying across the room. I left pretty quick and slept on the couch. Another one didn't scare me, but the wife. I saw 2 or 3 baby huntsman spiders about the size of a pinhead outside my bedroom. I saw maybe a dozen more in my bedroom. Then I walked into my end site. Huntsmans have about 200 babies at a time, and the remaining 185 were all in there hanging out. The wife made me go out at 11 PM for bug spray and still didn't sleep in the bedroom for another 4 nights. My mother-in-law called me over to her house because she thought her cat had been bitten by a brown snake. She asked me to bring a shovel. I drove over and found the snake in the backyard. I whacked that thing as hard as I could 10 times with the flat side of the shovel. The snake reared up a couple times until it slumped into a heap, bleeding. I put the snake in a plastic bag and tied it shut. I placed it between my legs while wife drove to the vet to get the cat checked out. I brought the snake so the vet could identify if it was a brown snake. When we arrived, the vet had just completed surgery on a dog and laid the dog on the floor. They opened the bag and the snake slithered off the table onto the floor and started moving toward the dog. A nurse covered the snake with a box and got a hammer. She later smashed its head with the hammer. I seriously couldn't believe it was still alive after the beating I gave it. Now I know I should have hit it with the edge of the shovel, cutting its head. Came home from work and went to step outside to enjoy the garden when I noticed an intense buzzing. I looked down and there's a spider wasp and a huntsman spider having a Godzilla, King of the Monsters showdown, wrestling all over the patio area. The spider wasp stung the huntsman into submission and dragged it over to a hole in the wall. I later learned that the spider wasp lays her eggs in the barely living body and uses it as an incubator. Nice. In another huntsman incident, the one I keep in my garage dropped into my lap from the sun visor in my car as I reversed out of my driveway. I screamed for a bit before scooping him up and popping him back in the garage. I warned him not to get in my car again. Anyone watching would have found a grown man lecturing a fucking huge spider a bit weird. I do generally like them though, hence not killing it. I've also been chased by an emu while cycling a few times. They're fucking deranged. I had just come home after a long bicycle ride. I took my shoes off and just forgot to bring them inside afterwards. 2 days later I was about to go on another bicycle ride, so needed my shoes. I put my left one on with no problems, but felt something a little squishy when putting my foot into my right shoe. I immediately took my foot out to discover it to be covered in at least 100 baby spiders, and a larger redback spider came scuttling out of the shoe. Don't leave your shoes outside, or at the very least check them, unlike me. I used to live in the country on a 4,000-acre farm, so it wasn't unusual that if go out riding and find somewhere new. Anyway, this one time, I'd saddled up my horse, told my foster family the direction I planned to take, and I was off. It was a pretty pleasant ride in summer, but it actually wasn't too hot, which isn't common in Australia. There's usually only 2 seasons in Australia. Freezy at it's off, or bloody oath it's hot. So finding the right balance at the right time is like winning the lottery. So there I was, plodding along on my horse, when I come to a bunch of eucalyptus trees. They're not uncommon, but I hate the smell, which is why they're always so memorable. Anyway, I start to feel like I'm being watched, but I shrug, thinking it's just a stray roo in the distance. I don't have the greatest eyesight, and at this point, I didn't have glasses, or maybe an echidna, because my horse was getting a little antsy. I do my best to calm her down, and we move on. The next few seconds felt like a lifetime. I felt something sharp in my back and added weight and I obviously freaked out. What the hell had just happened? I try to look over my shoulder the best I can and I'm greeted with the snarling, toothy snarl of a drop bear. I do my best to grab at it while trying to keep in the saddle because, at this point, my horse knew what was going on and she was going mad like a bronco. She threw both me and the bear and thankfully, the thud from hitting the ground was enough to send it speeding away and back into the trees. Safe to say, I rode back home as fast as I could, but I still have the claw marks to this day exactly in the shape of the Southern Cross. Scariest day of my life. My cat decided to bring a live baby snake into the house. Thanks Bailey. In bed, felt something scutter over my chest. Turned on the light. Saw nothing. Then as I went to turn the light off saw a giant fucking huntsman crawl under the mattress. I was so tired that I left it but it still freaks me the fuck out. About 5 years ago I was fully envenomated by a king brown while working on a remote mine site in the Pilbara, Washington. I had all sorts of side effects from the antivenin, including blindness. It took 2 years to fully recover. While I was mowing saw a snake. Thought it was a red-bellied black snake. Get them all the time. So I took a stick and hit the ground near it to scare it off. Fucking thing arced up, hissed and charged at me. I took off. It was a tiger snake. Went into my shed. No lights. Only to find out it was full of redbacks with webs in every corner. Now I'm not scared of spiders but holy Christ, half a bloody dozen were crawling all over me. Lucky I had some friends that were more than happy to smack them off. I'm not from Australia, but lived in Brisbane for a year while studying abroad. Was walking to the bars with a friend in the evening, quite dark out even on suburb city streets, so I pulled out my smartphone camera light. Just as I do so, I pan up to rustling in a nearby tree and there is a giant bat on a tree that turns around and spreads its wings like it's Batman. We ran out of there damn fast. After that, along with spider webs, I no longer walk on side walks into the suburbs, even during the day. Was down at a lodge by a lake with some friends, and we brought one girl's 2 dogs, big dogs, braids. Anyway, it was evening and the dogs start going crazy, so we look outside to see what's going, and there's a whole mob of kangaroos, like at least 15 all just standing in the trees near our little lodge. IDK how, but one of the dogs opened the gate and they both went running after the roos, fully chasing them, going wild, barking and shit me, and my friends had to sprint after the kangaroos to try and get the dogs back. The dogs somehow cornered them, but weren't moving, no matter how much we called them, so we had to go up to the roos to get the dogs. Had a stare off with one of them, was shit scared full, thought it was gonna punch me in the face, bloody terrifying. Lived in the outback. Was just minding my own business walking past the local cinema and a 6-foot emu came running out from behind a tree and nearly knocked me down. Scared the absolute crap out of me. Follow up, emus were not supposed to be in the township. There was a fence to keep them out, so town services had to forcibly evict it. They achieved this by driving up close to it, throwing a noose around its neck, quickly winding up the windows and slowly escorting it out of town. Bad idea. They are surprisingly strong, and it kicked in the whole side of the vehicle in the process. Being swooped by magpies and even plovers. They are very territorial and annoying as fuck. When they swoop they don't generally hit you, but get close enough for you to hear them swoop next to your head. Honestly, I think American animals are more dangerous. You have bears, wolves, mountain lions and other crazy predators that will give you a slow painful death. The worst we have are poisonous snakes. I live in Sydney, so none, unless you count a shark alarm at Bondi Beach once, or include huntsman spiders deciding to be in the most inconvenient places, like chilling between my car door handle, in my litter box, perched above my shower, etc. It's just inappropriate behavior on their half. I mean, I saw a snake once on holidays, but it was just a diamond snake, not one of the deadly ones. The time I pulled my hand out of a puddle to find a centipede attached to it. Edit. The cry of a curlew is fucking scary in the middle of the night. Like a baby crying. My family and I once came home to see a spider in the window with a span of more than 30 cm/ 12 inches. Even my father and I, who are usually okay with spiders and sex etc, were put off. My dad eventually got the courage to guide it out of the house. I read electricity meters for a few months out of university to earn some money. I would sometimes have to guide a spider out of the meter box. Honestly though, it wasn't the native animals that caused the problems. Getting bitten by a wasp or two stings like hell. My friend once went up to his car to find a snake had made it his home. He and a friend somehow coaxed it out. You should still visit Australia, though. Probably the time I had a giant huntsman jump on me while in bed.